Welcome to the Simply Be Found Huddle with Dean and Rob, and today we have our guest Cass on. See, I was going to butcher your first name, so I'm just
I
going
bet you said Cassian. I like Cass better. Is that working for you, Cass?
That works great.
That's what she said to use if I was going to butcher it. So there we go.
It's a great backup. It's a great backup.
Well, can you tell everybody a little bit about you before we kind of dive in and have just a general conversation?
Absolutely. My name's Cassian Bellino. I'm based in Hawaii. I run a podcast that's faith-based, interview style. And it really is just me bringing on scholars, theologians, PhDs to ask them, hey, I'm a Christian, but my faith doesn't make sense. Can you break it down to me simply? So they come on, I ask the questions that most churchgoers have, and they make it make sense. It's wonderful. It's changed my life, both spiritually, physically, monetarily. And I have learned so much about podcasting. So I'm more than happy to share all my secrets with you guys.
Well, definitely. So what have you learned about podcasting? I'm curious.
Okay, so podcasting itself, I literally didn't start for weeks simply because I was so afraid of just pressing record. I mean, look at us right now. We're just having a phone conversation. It's like a Zoom. That was terrifying to me. And I'm somebody that works remote. I'm a talkative person, but I think it was the fear of finally putting yourself out there, that fear of finally hitting record, despite it not being live. I was going to edit it and post anyways. But once you get over that hump, podcasting is so easy. There's so many resources. And while there's so many resources available, it's still so new. I mean, you talk to people about it and they're like, oh, we're just now figuring out podcasting. And you're like, it's radio, right? Well, so I would say it's not as daunting as you think.
Yeah, right, that's basically it. I mean, I know we work with a lot of business owners. They have the fear of starting a podcast. They have a fear of doing video. And with the new search and the way businesses are being found right now, you have to be able to get over that fear factor to be able to really just do it. Because, I mean, worst case scenario, you mess up. What's a really worst case scenario that's going to come from that?
It's a quote that I might just come up with, and after we've had some conversations, is I wanted it to be perfect and polished. I didn't publish it. Well, it's better to not be. It's better to be out there than to be invisible and not be heard.
I had some great advice from a friend when I was trying to do a couple things, post my podcast, courses and coaching. And I was trying to build all the platform things. And I was like, I'm just so afraid I'm going to get it wrong. And my friend's like, you will. You 100% will get it wrong. And then you do it better. And I think that just offered a lot of freedom of your first episode will be crap. And that's okay. You listen back and you laugh because you get better and you can hear the difference. You hear yourself change over time.
I can tell. So I can go back and look at YouTube videos because I think we're sitting over time of recording. I think 2,000 videos, maybe 3. I don't remember.
Wow! Congratulations.
But it's one of those things where I look back at them and I'm like, I can tell what kind of mood I was in. If I was fired up for something, because I'll just go off on a rant and it's like, all right, well, I mean, it's out there. It's information. Either someone's going to like it or they're not going to like it. It's like, I got asked for podcasting the other day. They're like, well, do you cuss on your podcast? I said, it depends on the guest that's in. You have to just it depends on what conversation you're having. It's like you judge it out. It might not be for everybody. That's okay. But I mean, it's one of those things to where you just have to do it. You're going to make mistakes along the way. You're going to figure out what you want to be when you grow up. And one day I'll figure out what I want to be when I grow up. Dean, have you figured out what you want to be when you grow up?
I'm still working on it. I've got snow on the mountain. At least it's up there, but I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up yet. It's one of those things. So Cass, you said you're making money doing the podcasting. Is that what you said? Are you making money with this?
Okay, well,
I'm not trying to make this money.
So, back it up. I think that if you're Amy Poehler or Joe Rogan, you have made a name for yourself. And Amy Poehler, Good Hang, just launched, and it's already number 1. But I'm not Amy Poehler. I'm nobody. And I have been gracious to get 100,000 followers. I have also been gracious to have the time and the available net to kind of explore with what does it take to monetize in podcasting. And the thing is I can't tell you because every single podcast is going to be different. What your podcast makes money from will be entirely different from mine because I tried doing the coaches. I tried doing the courses. I literally paid $10,000 and, all the courses, all the coaches, all the things to learn, the school communities, the one-on-ones. it didn't work for me because it's a faith-based education podcast that I am not the scholar. Why would anybody take coaching classes from me? So I have pivoted, and there's merch, there's donations.
Yep.
We're going into sponsorships because I clearly can garner an audience and have a little bit of influence here. So we're going down that route, and we'll see what works. But a couple people, some people work with Patreon, some people work with exclusive content. I don't ever want to gate my content because I feel like it's absolutely necessary for me to grow in faith. So why would I make someone pay for salvation? That just feels weird. So for me, my monetization has taken more of the sponsorship direction, brand management direction, more so than any tangible services that you might see in other podcasts. So while I am making money, I would not say it's a lot, but we are hustling out here. That's what I'll say.
Well, I mean, the whole piece. So I've done websites for some really big ones that had courses and everything that were all biblically based. So I had in my past, one of my past agencies, I had lots of membership sites.
Yeah.
And some of those I sent over to Dean to have shirts printed way back before we even started Simply Be Found. And being able to try to figure out who you are, what you want to be inside of that space.
Yeah.
Is different for every single person.
Yeah.
And what crowd they're going to attract.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because, I mean, we had membership sites, everything from, biblical to from one religion to another, and all of them had a unique base to it. And being able to see what the comment boards were on the back end, I was like, this is really interesting.
Yeah. And
I mean,
you see it in my comments as well. Like, people love to hate on it. What are you doing? You're doing this for the money. I thought you're supposed to be. It's like, this is a business, first of all, and whatever. It's going to be one of those things that I have to overcome with just creating Christian content. Comes with the territory. But a lot of my competitors make a lot of money off courses. But they're scholars. Of course, they should make money. They have the right to teach. I don't have the right. I haven't gone to theology. I haven't gone to seminary school. Clearly, look at me. But it's one of those things where you just have to have the self-awareness. And maybe this is like a entrepreneurial thing. I just think sometimes it's a little cringy when people pretend to offer value that they haven't earned. And I think that if we want to keep the integrity of online businesses and podcasting, I think you should earn the right to speak about things and get paid for it. I personally don't feel that way, so I haven't. And when I see other people do it, I applaud them for being bold. And maybe I will be like them one day. And hopefully, maybe that's just what it takes. I just don't understand it right now. Do you?
Not really. I mean, I see it. I mean, we see it inside of our industry a lot. Because you get people that go, well, I built a website. I'm now a website marketer. I can do this. And I'm now a guru. And it's like, I've got 30 years in the space and I'm just now starting to figure it out because of all the changes that have happened. I mean, so we see it in the same area. Would you agree, Dean?
Yeah, I would agree. But I'm really interested, with Cass, with you're bringing people in to talk about that information. And we try to do that with businesses, and we try to bring everything back into the business, what's important for businesses, and you're a unique industry, or if you will, with the faith-based. The thing is just trying to get everybody to understand that everybody has good information, no matter, for the I qualify that. I must think not everybody has good information, or people want to hear it, but everybody has something to say, and so I really applaud you for what you're doing.
Thank you. That's how it came from God. It's a little bit too much of a good idea. Like, I would say I'm smart, but I'm not that smart. So the way that God formulated this idea of hey, Cass, you're just going to ask questions that everybody has. It has very quietly, as I go deeper into this, and people are like, well, how do you have the right? Oh, well, like my friends, for example, a lot of my friends are atheists. And I talk up a lot about some pretty spicy topics like homosexuality. And when I got to that point of bringing on a scholar, talk about homosexuality, what does the Bible say? Why is it wrong? You get into these conversations of well, God sees it as detestable. And you're like, whew, I'm going to lose some friends when this goes live. I'm just thinking that in my head. It goes live. So my best friend, her brother is gay. I pull her aside. I'm like, hey, I just want to let you know this is going to come out. If you ever have an issue with it, please just talk to me. It's okay if you have an issue with it, like I'm not going to tell you can't, but our friendship means a lot. And I'd rather you talk to me about it than just get mad and stop being friends, because that had happened. I had a couple people just quietly whisper that they were never going to talk to me again. And whatever, okay, that's fine. But she said this amazing thing where she's like, well, you're not telling me it's wrong. You're asking why it's wrong, and you're letting other people answer. And I'm like, thank you, Jesus. Appreciate that. Like, it's allowed this like flexibility of openness, which I think like a lot of Christian content that we see is like, well, you're wrong because of this, and I'm right because of this. I have my preferences, but I don't think my preferences matter enough to speak them. And so this content is very much so like, well, what does this scholar say? Cool. Thank you so much for sharing. And I've had 2 scholars come on, completely disagree with one another. They're best friends. That's happened multiple times. I'm like, well, why do you disagree? Cool. Disagreement is okay. If there was somebody within the faith world that knew literally everything and was 100% correct, I think they'd be God. Like, I think we would call them God. So I think our expectations need to be more realistic here.
Well, I mean, so I homeschooled through a religious school, through a Christian-based piece when I was going to school. So that's what I homeschooled through. One of the assignments they gave I guess would have been how old was I? 12. They gave 12-year-old me as a high school piece, because I was finishing up my high school pieces. As I graduated early, I got told, hey, you finish all these books, you're done. I was like, all right, let's rock and roll. What grade do I have to get? They're like, C's. I'm like, okay, perfect. No problem.
Done.
I was like, I want this done and over with. Well, they ended up not being accredited. There was a whole piece that ended up being horrible there. But one of the assignments they gave me at 12 was, I want you to go look at 6 different religions, and I want you to compare them and dive into the history part of it. So 12-year-old me went out. I looked at everything inside of that I could possibly find. I picked my 6 religions.
What were your 6?
I did Christian. I did Mormon.
Which denomination?
I don't remember exactly.
Because that'll matter, like Orthodox versus Lutheran.
It was more Luther. It was like a Lutheran thing. Yeah. It was whatever the church was based on.
It was the vanilla one. It was the easy peasy one.
Right. But, I mean, it was one.
And I say that with love. I'm non-denominational and Lutheran.
So it was one of those things to where I was like, all right. And I picked Mormon. I picked one that was an Indian-based. I went way out there. Wow. I did Catholic was one of them. The Jewish area was one, and I dug deep into it. So then I came back with all these questions. And when they looked at me, they're like, you can't question this. And I'm like, well, what was the purpose of me doing this?
What? Yeah. Wait, like you can't because they didn't have answers? Or because it was sacrilege? This is literally why I do what I do. Like, when were we told it was wrong to say, I don't get it? I gave my life to this at church camp at 15. But now that I'm 25, I'm so confused. Like, it feels like, am I going to get stoned in church by saying that? I felt that way. Now that I do it, obviously you don't. I encourage it. I think with your doubt, you can absolutely, like, God invites it, because he's like, yeah, I have an answer. Just ask the question. Just ask the question and I'll provide the answer. But when you have a pastor or a leader that's like, I think that comes from a place of they don't know, or they just aren't adequately equipped.
They had no idea. They did not know how to deal with it.
And that's not their fault. That is systematically how seminary is set up. If you were a pastor, you're not taught on other religions. You're not taught on Old Testament. You're taught on New Testament, one ancient language, and how to be a pastor and how to counsel, because that's what it takes to do, your entire, for you to do Old Testament, for you to do Jewish literature, for you to do New Testament, for you to become a pastor. That's like 4 different seminary lengths. Like, who has time for that? So it's not their fault. It's the way that they were taught. They were taught correctly. But we as churchgoers feel exactly how you felt.
Right.
So at the end of that story, the piece that ended up happening from it, they're like, all right, you passed, just don't ask any questions. And if you come to church, you're not allowed to ask any questions anymore either. And it probably is a better idea for you not to come. And I'm like, okay. So I was like, all right. And I'm 12-year-old boy. I was like, all right.
So
but
sorry.
I look back at that. And it's like, okay. But I've always been the type, even with Dino testify, agree with me on this. I'm always the type that I'll always find any loopholes, and I want to know the answer of what the loophole is.
So what'd you do?
That was a really good exercise. It brought a whole different piece to religion to me personally when I did that whole side, because because it brought so many different unique ideas and pieces in that I still use to this day for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I first of all, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I hope that you found better support if and when you
Oh,
come
I
back
think it
to
was
the Christian
great. I think it was a
faith.
great
Yeah.
exercise.
Yeah. Where are you at in your faith walk now?
I believe in God. I would consider myself just a basic Christian. I don't go to church, don't do any of that on a regular basis. I go every once in a while for like, Christmas or something like that. But I still talk to God every day, still go through all that piece. But I mean, I'm not really that down and into it because of just stuff that's happened over the time. But yeah.
So
That's really interesting.
So as my priest would say, he's a C&E Christian, Christmas and Easter. But he goes, but I get them twice a year.
No, and we're glad to have you. We're glad to have you. Keep coming. If you want to throw in an extra Sunday, might as well.
Right. I mean,
but one of the things, Cass, that you were saying about the different the way you go through seminary school and things like that. I think a lot of people are out there. They're what I call preacher shopping. They look for the preacher that talks the language that they want to hear, and it may not. Do you see that happening in the religion, in the Christian religion per se?
Oh yeah, I did it.
This church believes that homosexuality is okay. This one does not. This is my belief, and so they're going to shop. That's not necessarily what I'm looking at, or they believe in three-dimensional figurines or two-dimensional or whatever. And I think that you see that happening in a lot of churches, and that's why there's so many fragmented denominations out there. Would you kind of go along that line?
So I think fundamentally the differences that you're speaking on is there's dogmatic principles of the faith and there's doctrinal. So dogmatic is Jesus died for our sins. Hard stop. Every church, if they're going to be Christian, has to believe that. So it's maybe you like the church, but then there's doctrinal that says basically, well, we think that there are sacraments, and we think that we should take communion every single week, and we think that worship music should have rock music. We think worship music should just be the human voice. That's more doctrinal. So I think when it comes to that is, if you're not believing dogmatically the fundamentals of what the Christian faith is, then you are shopping religions. You're not just shopping pastors. And with that, I think you get into homosexuality, like some of the core things. Like my personal beliefs is like some churches are way more open and some aren't. They should still believe in Christ. And that's where you get a lot of people of like women being pastors, and you've the LGBTQ within the faith. And like, I have my own opinions on it, but I think at the end of the day, some are more aligned or not. And that's where just the enemy really sneaks in to try to make it more modern. And in my opinion, you're no longer worshiping a dogmatically Christian faith anymore because you're keeping up with the times. I personally have pastor shopped when I got to Oahu. I live here now, and I was like, okay, I got to find a faith. And they were all Christian. They were all quite non-denominational. But I was raised Russian Orthodox, and I just had a Orthodox priest come on. And the way that they go about church is very pure, very original, very intentional, very different than what I do. And I'm not saying that I'm right and they're wrong or vice versa. It's just the way that where I'm at in my walk with faith requires more community, more young people, way more exegetical understandings of the faith. So it's giving more context of, if I was a first century Jew that lived right after Jesus died and I'm reading the Gospels, it makes sense to me because they're referencing things, the idioms make sense. It's the same way we talk about culture today. It makes sense to us. 2,000 years from now, they're going to have no idea why we care about certain things. So that's just what I mean by exegetical. I have pastor shopped, and I went to a couple churches before I found the one that I love now. And it was simply just, I showed up and was like, I don't like the way that I don't like what they're focusing on for their messages. I don't like that they're more aggressive or more soft. I don't like that it's mostly army and military wives. Like, I'm just trying to find my community here. So I think there's doctrinal and dogmatic shopping, and then there's pastoral shopping, and I think the latter is much more common. It's okay. It's understandable.
So with that said, how do churches attract people? We
work with a lot of churches as far as our listings engine, being able to help them be able to get the word out, being able to bring social media in, being able to use. There's still a business inside of the whole entire religion area. So So my thoughts going the same way you were, Dean, because you have to be able to market to be able to get to it, because you have to have people that come in, and you're always going to lose people. I mean, you can look at it just like a SaaS product, like which is software as a service. Yeah. You're always going to have churn, and if no one shows up to your church, you're probably not going to last very long.
Yeah, I would say and I can't speak for all Christians, but I think that it fundamentally comes down to, are you connecting and serving the people that need to be served? I think that, I went through my phase of college of I'm not going to church, I'm going on a hike because God's in nature. I went through that, that's how I connected with God. I don't agree with that anymore. But when you go to church, are you what's the role of church? It's to have a prophet. It's to have an evangelist. It's to have a community. It's to have a prayer circle, a support system. Are you serving your people in the way they need to be served? And that's going to depend specifically where they're at, specifically what their issues are. Are they a conservative place that needs more acceptance? Are they more liberal place that needs more structure? Are they, needing much more therapy-based type of scriptures and sermons? Or are they needing more tradition? And I think you have to meet the people where they're at, because as a church, you are called to foster and lead into people, because at the end of the day, the church will fall. We are people. You cannot put your faith in people. You cannot put your faith in church. But is the church fostering a relationship with you in Christ? Is it properly representing his doctrines, his dogmatic, who he is and why he said that? So you can have a deeper relationship with Christ. Because people, a lot of them are well, the church hurt me. I have that religious trauma. Absolutely. That's why we don't believe in the church. We believe in God. That church is going to fail you because it's people and we live in a fallen world. So I just, on my channel, based off what the scholars have told me, I talk about it in this way, not to ever put down any churches. I wouldn't be where I'm at without the prayer women in my Bible study in Tucson, Arizona. But we have to be honest, we can't put our faith in people. And I just want to normalize it. And that's why I talk about it. And with that, just have grace when you go to church and maybe you feel, they didn't accept my gay brother. It's okay, but they are not God. They're trying to help you have a relationship with God. And they're there just explain why God might not agree with it. But the judgment should not come from the church. The church is going to have a bad example. And that's where we get those pastors that cheat on their wives, which are horrible, but they're fallen. And people in leadership are going to be held to a higher standard. But spiritual warfare is so real. Spiritual warfare is going to use that to his advantage to push people away from the church. It doesn't excuse the behavior by any means. But again, that's why we don't have faith in people. We have faith in God. Did that answer your question?
It did kind of.
I'm sitting here processing everything, and I feel like I'm back in college at 1 o'clock in the morning having a debate about religion with a bunch of people. I mean, those were the best debates I've ever had, and not debates, but discussions. It wasn't a screen, but viewpoints. In the whole thing. But the bottom line is what you're talking about is that faith is everything, and what you're doing. But so many of the people said, well, I came from a small community. There was only one church in the whole community. And the next one said, and they really get talking about, the people aspect of how it helps them, because you have to have a good coach, if you will, a theologian or whoever, to give you that information, and discovering who those people are that are important, that's going to help you with your faith is what's important. So that's where, we, like Rob said, we have some churches that are part of us, and that's where they get a chance to share their beliefs, to get people to understand them, to know about them, because the bottom line is still salvation. But how do you get people to your church? Because it is still kind of a business, if you will, and you have to have people there to keep the doors open to the church, because without that, you still don't have a community, a space for you to come and commune, if you will.
So I'm kind of curious on this, Cass. I'm going to ask this question. When you moved to Honolulu, what was your process at finding a new church?
Oh, that's such a good question. Thank you so much for asking that. Let's see. I think personally, I just kind of put myself out there. It was such an easy move to come out here. So I made it kind of known that I was going to churches, of hey, where do you guys go to church? What would you recommend? And I was going to church alone quite a bit. And so I just kind of went with whatever was within vicinity. And I remember walking along the beach on a Sunday afternoon at 4. And they said Waikiki Beach Gathering, 4 p.m. Church on the Beach. Church on the Beach was what it was called, like DA, Church on the Beach. And so I was like, okay, easy peasy. I went to that. It was just small. It was starting up. It was super easy to be involved. I was on the worship team. The pastor was really young, and I was at a different place in my faith that I needed more. So I went to a different church. It was just kind of like, okay, this one, a lot of people have kind of said good things. You know, I'm asking people, where did they go? I went to the church. Didn't like it the first time, but was like, oh, it's just the enemy trying to get me out of here. Went to church the second time, had the same response, was like, okay, I actually don't want to be here. I'm just going to trust my body got hot. It was such a weird experience, but I'm like, oh, I'm not meant to be at this church for whatever reason. Like, I know a lot of people that go there and it's a great church. I'm not saying it's a bad church, but for me, wasn't a fit. Had a friend who's like, well, I go to this church, but it's on the other side of the island. So I started going to that one. All this time, I'm growing in faith. I'm growing a podcast, all the things. People know it. And now Cassie's super Christian. And so I think it is just like being very public with your faith. And funny enough, one of my friends who's not really Christian, and like I credit her to like a lot of my faith growth. And I told her this and she started crying. I was like, I think I'm a better Christian because of you, and you're not even Christian. She was like, I think you would love this church. It's so cute. It's so cool. It's so young. Because I'm going to this church across the island and everybody's married with kids, and I'm just not in that place in my life. So it's really hard to foster community and see people. She's like, you should go to this one church, and it's the house established, and they're doing it out of an elementary school. So again, super young church. But I walked in and I was like, oh, this is where I belong. And it was this just like being open to go alone. And I go to church alone quite a bit, but now I pick up people, and now I have a group that I sit with all the time, and people that go to church because I pick them up, and people that go to church because I'm like, I can't stop talking about how much I love it. So, and now I'm like involved in one of the life groups, and I love my church so much. I think that you have to just be okay with going alone, and it's a church. Like if people are rude, then just move on. There'll be some kinder people. And I ended up getting involved just by kind of reaching out with being like, I would say the best way to like a church is to get involved, not to like jump into volunteering, but join a Bible study for sure, because that's immediately people that you can say hi to, people that you can sit with. I've had a couple go awkward church days where I showed up with no one to sit with, but I saw someone from my life group, so I sat with them and got coffee with a couple of them. But I would say get involved with at least a Bible study if you can do more like worship or setup or sound. Absolutely. But I would say just be bold. Like the Lord sees you. He will reward your effort.
So what's the reason you didn't Google it? Or did
I
ever
absolutely
Google it?
I absolutely Googled it.
Did you Google it and look online at all?
I absolutely looked online. Yes.
Okay. Because that's where we help a lot of churches and work with a lot of churches on is we have our listings engine that can go out and put that information out. Then we have a social media suite. They can use that for being able to do their groups and all the different stuff that they do for that side.
I would say social media played a huge role in the church that I go to right now.
But was social media part of going and finding the church? I'm just curious. Finding
the church was definitely like a Google. And then from there, if I wanted to, I'd go on Instagram just to check out like what their church page.
Okay.
But church pages have a horrible Instagram. It's just very weird.
Most do.
Most do. So I would say
most have no idea about what
world idea.
They can open up to be able to start.
And there's so much they can do, especially just like the way people in microdoses want faith. Like I feel like my podcast has 100,000 followers because people are able to quote unquote go to church or learn about church from their phone. So people that I go live, they're like, well, I don't go to church. I don't go to Bible study. I'm like, well, I'm going on my phone. So you can join and no one will know, you can still get the word of God without leaving your home. But the church that I go to now, my friend specifically showed me their Instagram, and it was cool, and it was branded, and it was this like cool couple from New York, and everything was very aesthetically pleasing. And I was like, okay, I will give it a go. And then you went, and like the people made it. The people made me stay. They were young. They were beautiful. They were like the coolest people I've ever seen. I'm like, oh, this is where I want to be because I want to associate myself with such beautiful, faith grounded people. And now that's my church. Shout out to the house established.
There you go.
So when it comes to that, and it comes to having that peace, I think that is where a lot of churches could really grow their reach at. They might not just grow the people that are coming into their doors, but they'll be able to expose themselves more than they would, or their reach will get a lot bigger. So when we're talking businesses, I would say it's eyeballs. This one might be eyeballs, but it also might be more ears inside of that mix to be able to hear what's being said. But I guess processing through eyeballs too. So I don't know where my brain was just going. So yeah, I'll let you talk now.
I think it's like the church itself, a sermon, and just thinking back where I was when I wasn't eager to go to church. What kept me was an hour and a half. I don't want to sit for an hour and a half. It's okay. So people won't come to church because it's 90 minutes long and it's a little inconvenient and it's definitely socially awkward because you don't know anybody at church. How can I reach an audience online as a church? Well, I can take the best parts of my sermon and put them into a reel. I can take the best parts of my sermon and put them into a carousel. I can do a live where they can stay at home and just talk about this. I can do a prayer circle from live. It's at the end of the day, like the word of God is phenomenal, full stop. So how do we let people know the amazingness of the word of God? By overcoming these barriers of social anxiety, maybe time commitment, and maybe like driving. Maybe it's just like a really far drive. It's like the best church I've gone to is Red Rocks in Denver, Colorado. I went once.
Yeah.
I went once visiting my sister, and then I listened to them every Sunday online for 2 years after that. And they only took the best parts of their sermon and the amazing vulnerability of their pastor, put it on social media, so you wanted to follow them. Because every time I opened up social media, I got a little 90-second sermon. It was awesome.
I've never been to a bad event of any kind. I've been to one church event that was an Easter Sunday at Red Rocks. That was a long time ago, but my oldest would have been 2 or 3. So yeah, that was a long time ago. But
it wasn't Red Rocks the arena.
Red Rocks either.
No, Red Rocks the amphitheater.
No.
Oh, okay.
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 This isn't at the amphitheater. This is called Red Rocks Church.
Oh,
okay. So they do church services also out at actual Red Rocks.
Yeah, that'd be insane. I would love to go to that.
So being from Colorado, it's like that's when someone says Red Rocks, I'm picturing Red Rocks the amphitheater.
Oh, okay, got it.
They do a non-denominational service there.
Right.
So.
Yeah, there's a lot that happens there for that whole piece, but yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it's amazing. I think social media can definitely play a part in connecting people. I mean, I have literally 100,000 people that all DM me and they're like, I've never had anybody answer my questions. Like, why don't we create that personal touch of a pastor who gets to hug his congregation on a Sunday, but can maybe connect with somebody in Pakistan or Saudi Arabia or Australia by just going online and making it more accessible, the things that he's saying within the church.
Right. And the social media and the whole power of the internet is making it easier to get the word out, if you will. Churches have to understand the process to get there a little bit, because there's people that are interested, they're looking, but they may not want to be like you and walk through the doors, because I did that. I had that happen to me. I walked through the doors of a church when I moved to Illinois from Colorado, and then it wasn't a good fit. And then they would not leave me alone. I went, no, guys, it's just not a good fit, you know? So you have that going. So it doesn't allow me to find things that may need be looking for me personally.
Well, it's no different than the fear you had of starting your podcast, walking in the doors, not knowing anybody. There's a fear factor that comes to that. So someone that can, have that online establishment where you can get a taste of it and have an idea of what you're going to have in. It's inside of the world of marketing, you have relationship building. So it's no different than if we're talking about a business or if we're talking about a church for that, but it all surrounds around, a tree of how you're going to reach people. A church is a little bit different. You have your listings engine down at the bottom. So there's about 1,000 different networks. I don't know how many the churches work with. I've never had anybody ask me to dive into that. So I don't know how many of those 1,000 networks would pick up the church area. There's probably some unique ones that are in there. Now I'm going to look that up because the data science side of me says I should look that one up. But so you have your root base down at the bottom. Then you have your website, which is going to be your tree trunk. And then you have your canopy at the top that has all the different places that you're trying to reach or market. So if you're talking about a business, you're talking about, your blog, your social media, you're talking about all the different places of reach points, your email marketing. Well, it's no different than for a church than it is a business. You're just reaching and going for a different purpose. You might not be looking for, inside a business, you might be looking for sales. You might be looking for those things. So your goals are different for what you're going to see as value of being able to reach. But that's a very important piece for any church to have as well, is to have that tree and that ecosystem set up so they're reaching the people in the way that they're going to consume content. because every single person, their different age brackets, everything, they're going to consume content differently, and you're going to be able to reach them in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I don't know how any of that works, so I'm glad that you broke that down.
Well, because where we're at, and we're in Greeley, Colorado, and there's several churches, and they just don't have the congregation that they would like to have. And I think it's not the fact that there's not people out there; it's just getting that message out to say, come, for that fit, for the communal part of it that says you're welcome here. Because my dad goes to a different church than I do, and he doesn't like to go to my church because he doesn't feel like it's a good fit for him, kind of thing. So.
Well, I think that we're overthinking it a bit because social media is changing so much. And it's like, how do I create the coolest reel with the coolest hook with the best transitions? And at the end of the day, that's usually just like an editing software. Like I just got CapCut Pro. I just got it like a month ago. It's amazing. It's so easy to make anybody's cool, engaging video. But I had to stay with, authentic to my own brand. And I think that as churches grow, they hire a social media manager of like, make cool bio reels. And that's their only job. But at the end of the day, your job is to represent the church and fill your seats. What you should do is authentically represent your church. What does it look like to go to your church? Is it outside? Is it digital? Is it a small church? Is it in an elementary school? Simply create content that shows people what it looks like to go to your church and then go from there. Do you have a funny, zingy banter? Do you have a very emotional, quiet, solemn experience? That is all you need to do. And keeping up with the trends is so ridiculous when it's placed with church, in my opinion. I realize that the algorithm likes it when more people do a certain thing. Like I understand the back end of it, but I think just like, as a church, just film the experience. Show why you as a social media manager goes to that church, and that will authentically draw people in. That's all I did. Like I try, with content, you have to try everything, and then you keep doing what works. That's really that's the entire formula. What works for me is sitting in my bedroom, and I've done it in the rest of my house. I've tried to do it outside. It's not authentic, so I just do what works for me.
Well, you have to be yourself, and you have to be real. So with AI and everything that's coming out inside of technology, people's brains are still going back to the caveman days. So, you have the crocodilian brain trying to figure out if I'm going to eat it, if I'm going to mate with it, if I'm going to, what am I going to do with this? Am I going to eat it and it's going to kill me because it's a plant? You're looking at all those pieces that have been built into our brain since day one. So you have to be able to, get that algorithm to see through that piece. And you can be able to hit your reach in a different way. There's a lot of stuff that can happen as far as the algorithm goes. And the algorithm is based on you. It used to be static. It's more dynamic now. It knows more about you than you probably know about yourself and all the different sites you've ever visited with your IP address and what you've bought on Amazon, what you've done all across everywhere. It knows all those different key points about you that make you unique. So when I look at that from a data science side, and I'm looking at it as what the algorithm knows, if you ever want to change the algorithm, you can change your own algorithm based on it. It takes anywhere between 10 and 30 different searches inside of Google, inside of, Facebook. If you do those searches, so say everything's really dark and depressing and everything's all about all this drama and all this stuff that you don't want to see anymore, search for happy things. And if you do it 10 to 30 times on each of the networks, it'll change the algorithm. Next thing you know, all you're going to see is happy things.
Right. And that's for what you see.
It's trying to make you happy. It's trying to please you.
Right. I think Mr. Beast said that. Mr. Beast was like, the algorithm, replace the word algorithm with audience. Your algorithm is what is your audience liking? What are they commenting? That is what it's going to push more of. So whatever you do and the audience likes it, that's what they'll see more of. The algorithm isn't like some god deciding what is going to be seen on social media. It's just what your audience is responding the most to. So if you, as an audience member, respond the most to happy things, you'll see more happy things.
So the algorithm is actually is nothing but a math equation.
Oh, yeah. You know way more about this than me, so please tell me more.
So the algorithm's a math equation, and all it's doing is trying to solve whatever problem you have.
Yeah. Okay. That was so perfectly said. Thank you.
So, if you look at it from that aspect, and you look at it for all as a math equation, all it's doing is trying to solve it for you. So, I mean, you could point that towards religion, you could point that towards anything, but it's what you want to be able to see. Because at the end of the day, what that algorithm wants to do is deliver you the best results. So you come back and use that algorithm again. If you went to Google and never found anything that ever related to you, you would never go use Google to go find anything. You'd stop doing it. They wouldn't make any ad revenue. They wouldn't get any money coming in. They wouldn't have anything happen inside of their world. So it's there to be able to serve you and to be able to make you happy.
Yeah, 1,000%. Dean,
So
any thoughts?
No, I'm just sitting here going, okay, I bet you're going to let the two of you talk, and I'm going to listen a lot. So
when you do when you're doing your podcast, you're doing anything like that, I say don't worry about the algorithm.
Yeah, right. No. But it's so wild when you try so many different content styles and then something hits and you're like, oh, now I know so much more about my audience. Now this is how they receive information. Because you as the creator have so much information. What is your church about? What is your church teaching? What is the doctrines and the dogmatic principles of your church itself? But do they like it as like a talking head? Do they like it as a carousel? Do they like it with a little bit of humor? You know, you have to figure that out. And once you do, and the algorithm responds and rewards, just do more of that, because then they'll keep searching for exactly that. That's what it was for me. Like, I could not find a podcast that answered questions, someone smart, someone funny. And then I created it, and people were like, yep, that's what I wanted as well. And I'm like, oh, cool. I thought just my mom was going to listen, maybe my dad, but no, a lot of people are here.
I've talked to one business, and they're trying to go viral. And I said, if your strategy is to go viral, get a different strategy, because
True. Oh my gosh, yeah. You're at this point, and like, correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, I feel like you know a little bit more. I feel like the algorithm, or at least the goals of social media, are now switching from get as many likes and as many followers as possible to build real relationships leveraging social media. You can get more sales with 2,000 people, 2,000 willing buyers, than 100,000 people with a 1% conversion.
Right.
So it depends on the business model, but say if you're a roofer, we'll use that as an example because that seems to always be my go-to.
Okay.
If you, so if you look at yourself as a roofer and you do a video and you sell one roof out of that whole video, that covers you for a while. I mean, that's considered good. That's considered good results because you did what it did. Now, if you get two, because that video now sits there forever, and if you get another one down the road, now you just doubled, and now it just keeps adding on to it. Now, if you got 100,000 views on that one video and you sold nothing, you got nothing out of it.
Truly. And as long it's focusing, it's the point of bringing this up is it refocuses where you put your energy. Is the energy to find the most viral trends and the best scripts, or should it be in your DMs, messaging people, having real conversations, letting them know that you care about them and that you actually want to provide? That roofer is saying, I'm going to talk about the best kind of shingles, whatever it might be. And then people DM saying, I disagree. And he comes back and he says, well, tell me more. Let me talk to you. Like, that is where it's headed, or at least that's where it's at right now.
It is. And it's a matter of just getting it out there and letting the information know, especially if you're a business, because if you're not telling the algorithm what it is you do, and this would go for a church too. If you don't tell it what you do and what you believe in and your values of that base, it'll never know that's what you can deliver. So I'd be really curious, and I don't have the data. There's no way for me to track the data that I'm aware of. I'm curious on how many people go try to find a church using AI, because I'm seeing that a trend inside of business, and I can track it from people saying, hey, I found them inside of AI. But I don't know if churches have ever asked that question.
I think it empowers the role of the social media manager to now be kind of PR, kind of understand the business, not just know how to schedule and post, not to just like and comment. It's now PR, but also, like, I just did an episode with an Orthodox priest, and he's like, we're getting so many men. Like, I don't know what it is. It's this revival of men coming back to the Orthodox church. I'm sure, because I ended this, I was like, what do people expect when they go to an Orthodox church? Because me being raised in it, I know it's very different than Calvary or Hillsong. It's going to be head covering, men on one side, women on the other. You stand the entire time, incense, icons. You're going to have communion. People don't know that. So they're probably in AI saying, okay, I'm going to go to this Orthodox church. And they're typing this, what can I expect? What do I need to know ahead of time? Because they're like, well, I don't want to mess up communion. Do I cross myself when I go up, or do I kiss them on the lips? I don't know. People want to go in prepared. So that's probably what they're asking AI.
I'm sure they are. Well, people are using it more and more to be able to have a conversation, to make it not static, to be able to figure it out and ask the questions they have. So if you haven't put that on your social media, you haven't put it on your blog, you haven't put it out there for the world to know, it'll not know it'll never choose you as being a possible option out there. So
I would say,
about them.
Yeah, as a content, if you're a church, I would say the best thing to do is, what can someone expect when they go to your church? And that should be pinned to your profile.
Yes.
And it should be something that you update and keep updated.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Agreed.
I had to mute myself because I take my dog with me everywhere, and it decided to bark at something outside.
I was wondering why you muted yourself, and I figured it was the dog since you're at your daughter's house.
Yeah, exactly.
That's okay. I have sirens. I live next to a fire station, so the sirens go off all hours of the day. So I'm like trying to talk and mute myself too.
I had that just happen just now. I heard an ambulance go up by. I had to mute myself for that too. So it's like all kinds of good things. So
yeah,
that's why
that's the beauty of doing this.
Yeah.
Now, Cass, if anybody's interested in finding you, listening to your podcast or anything, where are they going to find you at?
I appreciate you asking. Thank you so much, Robert. Everything is on my website, bibspeak.com. That's BIBSPEAK.com. That'll show you everywhere you can listen. I had a couple people say, I don't have Spotify in my country. Can you put on YouTube? So wherever you listen, it'll be hosted on my website. I have a merch line. I don't promote it. But what I do promote is my podcast itself and my Instagram. I am on Instagram chronically. I'm on every day. So if you want to connect with me, follow me on Instagram, DM me. There's no manager there. It's just me. I run the entire account. I do everything myself. I just have a VA in the Philippines that works part-time and a college intern that's going to help me with sponsorships. But it's just me. Like, I'm the one connecting with you. So if you ever want to talk about something, if you have a question that I haven't asked, if you want to connect with some of the resources of the scholars, DM me on Instagram. If you want to partner with me and sponsor me, email me at info@bibspeak.com. But everything can be found at BIBSPEAK.com, including the Biblically Speaking podcast, which is now on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple.
What are you using to distribute your podcast out? I'm curious.
Spotify for Creators, which is hosted with Anchor. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of RSS.com.
Girl, you know so much more about this than I do. I literally called somebody. She's like, "Girl, just go through Riverside. It's with Anchor and it's with Spotify." And I'm like, "Done. I don't even want to change RSS."
I was just curious because the nerd part of mine kicks on.
Well, once you get familiar with something, you just go with it. If it works, just go with it.
I feel like I'd be like, oh, there's double duplicates everywhere. Yeah, we'll just stick with Spotify. And people have got their issues with it when it comes to podcasting. I think it's going through a growth pain right now, figuring out how can Spotify best support podcasters. People have issues. I think they're figuring it out. They just rolled out video. They just, it'll be great. Podcasting is amazing.
It is. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys.
You bet.